It was a hectic afternoon at the airport. Travelers hurried past with rolling bags, some laughing, some arguing, many exhausted from long journeys. Flight 127 to West Africa was ready to board. A few passengers lounged in the first-class area, sipping drinks and scrolling on their phones. Among them sat a quiet man in simple black clothes. His shoes were polished but modest, his bag unobtrusive. He said nothing, observing everything. Holding his first-class ticket for seat 2A, he drew curious glances once, twice from people who saw a lone black man without the usual business accessories, no laptop case, no flashy watch. Yet he waited patiently, just like everyone else, when the gate agent called. "First-class passengers, please proceed to gate 4. He joined the line. Clara, a slim attendant with bright red lipstick and a neat blonde bun, greeted a suited white man before him with a sunny welcome aboard, "Sir," as she scanned his ticket. Then she turned to him. Her smile vanished. "Excuse me, sir," she said, blocking his path. "This lane is for first class." He quietly showed his ticket. Clara's jaw tightened. "Cat 2A, this must be a mistake," she mumbled. She looked him up and down, disbelief in her eyes. "Sir, this flight isn't for someone of your color," she announced loudly. "Maybe you meant economy. Someone else must have booked this seat." Nearby passengers gasped. Phones rose as people began to film. He remained calm. "I bought a first-class ticket. That's my seat," Clara sneered. "You can't even pronounce our airline's name, and you expect to sit here." The line grew restless. A junior attendant in glasses wandered over. "Is everything all right?" he asked Clara quietly. "This man's trying to board first class on a fake ticket." She hissed. He scanned the ticket with his handheld reader. A green checkmark beeped. "It's valid," he whispered. Clara's anger flared. "It doesn't matter. Do you really think he belongs in seat 2A?" More passengers whispered and recorded. He stepped aside briefly to let a mother with a baby pass, then turned back. "I'm not here for drama," he said softly. "I just want my seat." Clara's authority crumbled in front of the crowd. At last, she stepped aside, warning, "We'll see how long you last up there." He walked on, silent and composed. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of leather and cologne. He stowed his bag, buckled in, and pulled a small notebook from his pocket. He began to write. Expression unreadable. Clara passed him en route to serve, drink, smiling at everyone except him. When she reached seat 2A, she paused, then asked flatly, "What would you like to drink?" "Just water, please," he replied. She rolled her eyes, plucked a bottle of still water, and dropped it harshly on his tray. He adjusted the cap and took a sip without a word. Nearby, François Delacroix, the French CEO, and DC noticed the tension. He had seen arrogance before, but this was different. The man hadn't spoken much, yet there was something undeniably dignified about him. As the captain's voice came over the speaker, preparing for takeoff, "Please fasten your seat belts." The man closed his notebook and gazed out the window. Above the clouds, the world below vanished, but a storm was brewing inside that cabin. Over the next hour, Clara's disrespect never wavered, ignoring him when she handed out hot towels, mumbling under her breath as she served lunch, even smirking. "I hope next time you choose the right cabin." Each slight landed quietly, no outburst, no complaint, until François couldn't stay silent. "Excuse me." He leaned toward Clara. "Why are you treating him so poorly?" "Sir, mind your business." She snapped. "This is my business." François shot back. "I paid for peace of mind, not to watch you insult another paying passenger." A ripple of agreement ran through first class. Clara stomped away. The man in 2A closed his eyes and took a slow breath. He was used to storms both in the sky and on the ground, but this one cut deeper. He reached into his coat and touched a small fold of cloth, his country's emblem. He didn't need to wear it. It was already in his heart. "Cabin crew, prepare for arrival 30 minutes to landing," the captain announced. Travelers straightened up, but the tension lingered. Clara made one last pass by 2A, arms crossed. "You're lucky we didn't throw you off," she hissed. He merely nodded, settled back, and watched the sky, a silent arrow in flight and scene. Power revealed by the storm he had survived. Before takeoff, he looked up. his voice steady. "Sometimes the seat we choose isn't just about comfort or money," he said. "It's about what we represent. I'll keep choosing this seat not for luxury, but because things must change." His words hung in Clara's ears. She didn't fully understand, but they made her feel small. As the plane descended, the clouds parted, revealing Ouagadougou's twinkling city lights. Passengers prepared to disembark. The man in Toué picked up his small bag, stood tall, and waited his turn. No one Clara, François, or the curious travelers recording on their phones knew that when the wheels touched the runway, this quiet passenger would step off not just as another flyer, but as the most powerful man on that plane. With a gentle bounce, the wheels met the runway. Cabin lights brightened as the captain announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ouagadougou. Please remain seated until we come to a complete stop." A smattering of applause filled the cabin. Some passengers stretched and yawned, others were simply relieved. But in first class, everyone's gaze stayed fixed on seat 2A. Clara, still seething, approached him one last time. "I wish you'd never boarded," she hissed, voice low but venomous. He looked up calmly. She pressed closer, making sure no one else could hear. "You smell like you haven't bathed in a month," she sneered. "Do you think first class makes you clean?" He blinked once, said nothing, and his steady, unflinching gaze met hers. The French lady in debis, who had witnessed Clara's earlier cruelty, spoke up. "That's enough." Clara snapped, "Mind your own business." The woman shook her head. "No, I won't. You've gone too far." François Delacour rose from his seat. "Clara," he said firmly, "you've embarrassed yourself, this airline, and all of us." He paid for this seat, behaved with dignity, and showed more grace than you'll ever understand. Clara's face flushed with shame. "I did what I thought was right," she stammered. "We have standards." "No," François countered. "You have prejudice." Other passengers clustered near the front, some recording, others simply watching in stunned silence. When the cabin door opened and ground staff brought out the stairs, Clara finally noticed something different on the tarmac. A black car, dark windows, a red carpet, and 5 uniformed soldiers at attention. Whispers rippled through the cabin. "Is there a VIP, a royal?" Clara's confusion deepened. The junior attendant, phone in hand, approached her. "Clara, you need to see this." He showed her a photo. The man in his seat, now in full military uniform before a roaring crowd, flags flying. The caption read, "President Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso." Clara's hand trembled. "No, this can't be." The president rose gracefully, lifted his bag from the bin, and headed for the exit. Clara's voice caught. "Sir, wait. I didn't know. I didn't mean to." He paused, turning back with gentle eyes. "Would it have made a difference if you had known?" he asked quietly. She had no answer. He offered one last lesson. Respect isn't a gift for the powerful. It's a duty to every human being. Then he stepped onto the red carpet. Soldiers snapped to salute. The black car door opened. He paused, looked back up at the plane, and departed. François hurried down the steps. "Mr. President," he called softly, "please forgive us. I had no idea you carry yourself with such humility." President Traoré smiled. "Sometimes we must walk low to see how deep people's hearts are." They shook hands. Inside, Clara sank into a vacant seat, pale and shaking. The junior attendant knelt beside her. "You didn't just insult a president," he said gently. "You insulted all of us who look like him." The captain emerged from the cockpit. "Prepare a written report," he ordered. "Expect to be questioned." Clara buried her face in her hands. Outside, cameras flashed as the president's car drove off. Videos of Clara's outburst and the president's calm dignity went viral within minutes. Social media erupted. People were angry, shocked, inspired, and ashamed. Later, in a small office by the jet bridge, the airline manager confronted Clara. "Do you realize what you've done?" he demanded. "It's not who he is," she whispered. "It's what you said. This flight isn't for someone of your color. You've done this before." Clara gasped. The manager continued, "We've had complaints. This isn't the first time." Clara stood frozen. Meanwhile, President Traoré sat in his car, the airport director at his side. "Sir, we're deeply sorry," the director stammered. Traoré raised a hand gently. That's the problem. He said, "You only care when you know. I flew today not to test anyone, but to feel what people feel. That woman didn't just insult me. She insulted millions of Africans. She showed how deep racism still runs." The director nodded. "She's been removed from duty." Traoré said nothing. His silence spoke louder than anger. A reporter asked from the curb, "Mr. President, will you press charges?" He met her gaze. "No," he replied. "I don't need to jail anyone to make a point. The whole world saw what happened. Let that be enough." Back inside, Clara sat alone. Phone buzzing with hundreds of angry messages even her mother had written. "I raised you better than this." That evening, unable to sleep, Clara penned a handwritten letter to the president. "Dear President Traoré, I am sorry not because you are a president, but because you are a human being, and I failed to treat you as one. I was blind with pride and poisoned by ignorance. You had every right to humiliate me, yet you forgave me. I will never forget this lesson, and I pray one day to prove I've changed. At the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, Traoré read the letter. Simple, honest words, no excuses, only regret and a promise to grow. He folded it gently and placed it in his desk drawer. His assistant entered with news. "Sir, we've received hundreds of letters, messages of support, apologies from airline staff, even children's artwork." Traoré nodded. "I didn't plan for any of this. I only wanted peace that day," he said, but silence spoke louder than 1,000 speeches. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out. "It's not enough to forgive," he told his assistant. "We must educate. What happened is a mirror of hearts that still need to change. Prepare a national campaign, the Dignity Project. We'll teach respect in schools, TRAIN service teams, and promote kindness at every level. Let the story be more than news, let it be change." Months later in France, Clara, now suspended, volunteered daily at an immigrant shelter, listening to stories, serving meals, folding sheets. One morning she sat beside a little African girl clutching a torn teddy bear. "What's your name?" Clara asked softly. "Aminata," the girl whispered. "That's a beautiful name." Clara smiled. Aminata's lip trembled. "They call me dirty at school," she admitted. Clara's heart broke. "They're wrong," she said. "You are beautiful, just like your name." That night Clara wept not from shame, but from awakening to the power of words. She wrote again to the president. "Dear Mr. President, I don't expect another reply, but I want you to know I am changing, not because I was caught, but because I was wrong. Every day I meet people who remind me of you, quiet, gentle, yet full of worth. I see them now, truly see them. Thank you for your silence." It shouted loud enough to wake me up. President Traoré later spoke at a Ghanaian university. Standing in simple clothes before a packed auditorium, he began, "My story isn't special. Millions face disrespect every day simply because of how they look." He paused. "I was called dirty and told I didn't belong, not as a president, but as a man with dark skin. I stayed silent, not because I couldn't speak, but because I wanted to listen." He leaned forward. "Listen to the pain of others, to your own thoughts, to the voice in your heart that says everyone deserves respect." Behind him, a quote glowed on the screen. "If your power makes others feel small, it is not power, it is weakness." The audience rose in applause. That quote soon painted walls, printed on shirts, shared in airports worldwide. Years later, people recalled that flight as the moment the world paused to reflect, when a simple passenger taught the world about dignity, when a proud woman broke and rebuilt her heart, when silence roared louder than hate and the lesson lived on in every seat beside us, whether in first class, economy, or on the street.